I don't want to go.
What's up, guys? It's Vipsie, and this is a vlog, a real life vlog. I debated on how I want to do my comeback. I thought about it long and hard, and there's a lot of changes I want to make to my channel. And if you're interested in hearing about those changes, then I recommend you wait till the next video that comes out. The next video I'll be going over what I'm going to be doing with my channel, where I'm going to be taking it, and what kind of goals I want to see for my channel. So, first let me apologize. This is the first time in a very long time that I've done a vlog, so I might not make direct eye contact with the camera. I'm still getting used to it up there. But this video I'm going to come clean. So I should start by saying that the past 4 years, I have not been exactly honest with you guys. I'm going to try to keep this short, as I've tried recording this video a few times, and I realize no one wants to watch an hour-long video of me crying about the last 4 years of my life. So the TLDR version is that it has not been easy. It has not been something that I am proud of. This year I've been doing pretty good. Let's just jump into it. So 2015 is when it all started. It started when I met a man named Zayn. And if you are a fan of my channel or have been on my Twitter for longer than a year or so, then you know who Zayn is. Zayn was the partner of mine. I feel like everybody has one big defining heartbreak, and Zayn was definitely mine. So I'm going to talk about what happened. I'm going to talk about what I can, because there are some things that I cannot talk about. So to start things off, 2015, it was March. I met this man, and I thought it'd be wonderful. I thought we were a good fit, and frankly, I thought he was the best I can do. So I jumped in head first, as one does when you're 18 and think you found the love of your life. I let him move in with me after a month, because he got kicked out of his house. His mom kicked him out, and I guess that should have probably been my first red flag. But a month then we moved in together. And because, for the sake of being blatantly honest, I found out about 2 weeks into the relationship, before he moved in with me, that Zayn really enjoyed smoking weed. I was fairly inexperienced with weed. I'd only had a couple of brushes with it, so I was very curious, and as most people do when they experience weed, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But as with all things, weed cost money, and that's where our downfall was weed costed money, and weed costed about as much as everything else. So we moved in together. He moved into my father's house, I should say, and about a month after that, my father caught on to our smoking habits and told us to leave. And we didn't have anywhere to go, so we drove to the gas station across from my work, and we stayed there in the parking lot for about 2 months. We had nowhere to go. Every payday we stayed in the Motel 6 next to my work, and those were the good nights, because we had money for that 24 hours. and we had weed, and we had a bed. So those were good nights. But we couldn't do that for very long, so we got a couple of friends in a couple towns over to let us move in with them. And this was my first time being being away from my parents. I went from always living with my parents to homeless, which was kind of a rough ordeal, to moving into an apartment with 2 roommates. However, priorities did not change. We got jobs, but our money went to the same place it always was going, and that was to 3 things. Weed, number 1, always. Cigarettes, and gas, in that order. So we found ourselves always having weed, and always having cigarettes, and never having money, and never having food, and never paying rent. So by Christmas 2015, our roommates asked us to leave. And I don't blame them. I get it. You know, it was a nice apartment. It was probably over $1,000 rent. But the fact that I don't even know what rent was at that apartment should tell you all you need to know about that. So we had to go somewhere. My father wasn't taking us back in. His mother wasn't taking us in. So I called my mother, who lived in Texas, and said, "Can we come home?" And she said yes. It was around this time also that I started doing online art commissions. And if you are unfamiliar with what that means, it means I started drawing pictures like this for money. And the picture that I just put up, or might still be up, not sure, post-editing, was actually one of my pieces of art. And they were not good. It was not good art. It was very, very overpriced, and I was going about it the very, very wrong way. I was taking all the money I could, and I could not churn out art fast enough. So, we moved to Texas. I was doing the best I could to keep up with a job, and my art commissions, and my YouTube channel, and my boyfriend and I's secret life of being a stoners, and it was not working. It was not working at all. My parents down here in Texas caught on to our smoking habits, asked us to leave. Again, not mad at them. Don't hold them responsible for anything, because I would have done the same thing. So we moved out. We moved into the very first apartment that we could find. Rent was about $600 a month, and we never paid it. Instead, we moved into this apartment in April. I eventually just let my commission slide. Kept all the money that I had made and didn't give anybody their art, which ended up backfiring significantly on me. And I just want to say that if you bought art from me and you never received your art and you never received a refund, feel free to go to my Twitter at Vipsie with 2 E's at the end and DM me, because I'm in a position now where I can repay that, and I would like to do that. So I will know if you actually did buy art from me, because I do still have a list. So that's all I want to say about that. But shit got really real, and Zayn quit his job, and I couldn't support us both. I eventually lost my job as well, and we began doing plasma donations. For those who don't know what plasma is, or plasma donation is in your blood, there is a chemical called plasma, and just like somebody would get a blood transplant, there are a lot of people who need plasma infusions. And so you can go to this clinic type area, and they hook you up to an IV, and you sit in this chair for about an hour while they pull blood out, spin it in a machine to separate it from the plasma, and put the blood back in. And we were doing this for a while, and they pay you for this, so that was our supplemental income for when we didn't have jobs. And then in August, right before my birthday, in 2016, I had a seizure. In fact, I had 2. Back to back, within 3 hours of each other. We went to the hospital, and they had no idea why. Nothing was coming up wrong, but I was definitely having these seizures. So they put me on anti-seizure medicine and told me to live with it. And that's that became my life. That disease kind of consumed my life for a little while. and I was having seizures pretty often, every other month or so actually. And anytime I had a seizure, I always had 2 back to back. And while doctors can't figure out where it was coming from, I noticed the pattern of they usually happened on days where I was especially hungry, and didn't eat a whole lot. So my best guess was that I was having no nutrients and my body couldn't keep up. The seizures should have been another red flag of my body literally telling me to run, but I was naive. I was 20 and thought that the world was my oyster, and I thought I was in love with this man, so I kind of just let it go. But by the end of 2016, we were facing eviction because in 8 months or so, we never paid rent. We changed electric companies 3 times, but we couldn't keep that up for very much longer. So at the end of 2016, Zayn finally broke down and contacted his mother. She lived back in Pennsylvania, and she said, "Okay, you can come home, but you both have to find jobs. You both have to keep your noses straight, and you gotta look getting your own place because I can't support all of you." So we did. We went to his mom's house and lived in her basement for a while, like a good 6 months or so. And it was a good 6 months. I mean, we got pretty decent jobs. It's where I first started working in home health care. And home health care was a fantastic job. It really was. It paid really well, and it was very rewarding in its own sense, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But most of our money was still going to those 3 things: weed, cigarettes, and gas, in that order. So there were some days I couldn't go to work because we didn't have gas. But we always had weed, and we always had cigarettes. I eventually lost those jobs, and around losing that job, Zayn also got a new job. He worked in an autism clinic, and I will applaud him for this. That was the longest time he spent at a job in the 4 years that I dated him. He was there for about 8 months, got paid very good money, and we were in a position where we could leave. So we moved in with a couple of friends from his new work. They lived literally right around the corner, maybe a block from his job. So I was the only one who had to worry about gas, so we could make this work. And we did, and we made it work. I won't say that we paid rent too often, but we did okay living there. One of the roommates, however, had a relapse on a very serious substance. Once she had her relapse, we knew we had to leave because we were also going to get blamed and searched, and we had weed on us all the time. I was also, at the time, after losing my job at home health care, I went to work for Dunkin' Donuts. Some of you might remember that whole time period, and that was a pretty good job. But it came to an end, as all things do, so we had to move somewhere else. This was around October of 2017. I was still having my seizures. We were still having money issues, and we moved in with a coworker of mine from Dunkin'. We all got our own apartment, and in a month into that, she decided that she didn't want to live with us. She didn't want to live with him. He never paid money. He always had weed. So she left. And left us kind of with our asses in our hands at this apartment because we were not good at paying rent. We didn't know where to pay rent. And we had this huge apartment that we had no idea what to do with. So I called my father, who lived 2 hours south in Pennsylvania, and said we need to come home. So he let us actually come back, which was very surprising, considering that the whole journey started with him kicking us out. So we moved in with him. He gave us the same ground rules: get jobs, eventually move out, don't do drugs. And 2 weeks later, I missed my period. And I freaked out, and I went to my stepmom, and I said, I missed my period, what do I do? We went to Rite Aid. We bought 2 pregnancy tests, and they came up positive. So here we were, no money, no credit, no car, no nothing, and a baby on the way. 2018 was hard. I was able, because I was pregnant, I was able to convince my parents to let us stay there, with no strings and no stipulations, and we still spent all of our money on the same 3 things. Baby on the way and everything. We were still smoking weed. I was still smoking cigarettes, and we were still putting all the rest of our money into the gas tank, which was actually my little brother's Jeep. He didn't know how to drive yet, so we were able to drive his Jeep. And in April, we get pulled over. Middle of the night. We were supposed to be at work, but about a week before that, we had both gotten fired. We were working at the same place again, and we both got fired. So I hadn't told my parents yet, so we were just faking going to work, when really we were riding around town getting stoned in the car. We get pulled over because of a traffic violation, and we had weed in the car. So, luckily for me, being 4 months pregnant, I kind of used the pity card on them. They did not take us to jail that night, but they did write us both tickets. We thought we could hide it, but about a month later, they showed up in the mail, and my father ripped them open and went, "What the fuck?" But that was a big deal. Like I said, I was 4 months pregnant. I was just starting the show, and here we were, still smoking weed and getting caught for it. Obviously, 4 months pregnant, my dad didn't know what to do with us. He couldn't let us go. So we just stayed there and ate shit, basically. And we didn't stop smoking. Instead, he took the car away. We got jobs that he drove us to, and to smoke our weed. We walked down to the park in the middle of the neighborhood and sat on the park bench and smoked weed. Because we were idiots. And then September came, and our little man was born. And, you know, they say that you don't know what love is until you have a kid. And I always thought that was bullshit, because I thought I was so in love with Zayn that it had to be true love, that there was nothing else that could ever compare. But then Abel was born. And that little man changed everything. Well, he changed everything for me. We brought him home, and I was on maternity leave for 2 months because I had a particularly difficult delivery. So I was on maternity leave for 2 months where I'd only planned on being for 1 month. And for those 2 months, I did everything myself. I got up with him every night. I was with him all day long. I did everything with him. I couldn't leave the house because I had to be with the baby, and Zayn did nothing. Really, he didn't. He never got up with him, and anytime I asked him to get up with him in the middle of the night, he would tell me, "Well, you're not working. You can get up with him." My postpartum depression was pretty bad, but I didn't have a choice to babysit it. I couldn't let it eat me alive because I had this little man who depended on me for everything. So I had to do something, and I couldn't mope around, so I stepped up. And at the time, Zayn was working in a management position and was looking at making assistant manager, and that was a big deal for us. That was the most, that was the highest ranking job that we would even get close to. He was about 2 weeks away from making this, and it was in December. So Abel was 3 months old, and I take Zayn to work one night. I get home, I get settled, I get the baby settled. I'm sitting out on the back porch having me a cigarette, and Zayn calls not from the work phone, but from his cell phone, and says, "I need you to come pick me up." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "I got fired." And I go, why? And he goes, because I was stealing. And all I said at that point was, okay. And I hung up the phone. And on the drive from the house to his work, which was only maybe a 10-minute drive, I said to myself, okay, we'll give him a week. We'll give him a week. We'll see what he does. If he steps up and starts helping with the kid, if he finds another job, if he looks for another job, if he shows interest in actually doing the right thing, okay. But if he doesn't, then we gotta do something. Because the last 3 years had been hell. Had destroyed my credit, had destroyed my health, and it was lining up to destroy my son's life. So I knew I had to do something. So I didn't say anything. I didn't poke him, I didn't prod him, I didn't ask him to get up with the baby, I didn't ask him to do shit. And a week went by, and he spent all 7 of those days sitting on my computer, torrenting video games with his head in his ass and not looking at jobs, not looking at the baby, not looking at me, not looking at anything, but right here. On the 7th day, I woke up before him, always, because, he slept until 2 in the afternoon most days. So I woke up normal, like 6 a.m., get the baby up, we go downstairs, I turn on some cartoons, because even at 3 months old, he loved himself some cartoons. I get him all set up, I go out for my morning cigarette. And my stepmom comes out. She sits down, she goes, "How's it going?" Like she always does. And I just lost it. I just started crying. And I say, "I don't know what to do. He lost his job." And she looks at me with this dumbfounded look on her face and goes, "Baby, he has to go." And it was the hardest thing to hear, because I knew that. I knew he had to go. But I wasn't just breaking up with my boyfriend anymore. I was taking away my son's father and his grandparents. And I was completely taking the responsibility. And I was crying. And he had to go. And she says, "What do you want to do?" And I said the first thing that came to mind, because 90% of the time, the first thing that comes to mind is the truth. I said, "I want to go home." She knew what I meant. I wanted to go home. Home being Texas. I grew up here. My mom was here. And there had been an incident that happened in October when Abel was a month old that I can't talk about. That really sealed the deal for me. My family was in Texas. The people I wanted to raise my son around were in Texas. So that's what I wanted to do. And she goes, "Okay, I will support you. I will do anything you need me to do. What's the first game plan?" So I said, I need somewhere to take him, to take Zayn. So I called Zayn's mom and I said, "Hey, if I drive him home right now, will you let him in the house?" And his mom paused and she said, "You're finally doing it?" And I said, "Yes, I'm finally doing it." She goes, "Will you bring the baby so I can see him?" "Yes, I'll bring the baby." She goes, "Okay, I'll be here all day. When you get here, we can talk more." So I went upstairs. I left the baby downstairs with my stepmom, and I went upstairs and I started packing anything I could see that was immediately Zayn's. I grabbed his sweats, I grabbed his shirts, I grabbed his underwear, I grabbed his deodorant, I grabbed his shit, and I threw it in a box of diapers, and I threw it in the back of the car, And then I woke him up and I said, get the fuck up and get dressed. And he had no idea what was going on. And by the time he figured out what was going on, I was shuffling him and the baby out of the house, shoving them in the car, and we were driving. And I drove in a roller skate of a car. We had a Hyundai Accent, which I don't recommend for anybody ever, especially not with a baby. And drove to his mom's house 2 hours with the car vibrating because I was driving too fast. And he sat in the passenger seat and he sobbed. And he did everything and anything he could to get me to pull over, shy of touching the steering wheel. And we pull up to his mother's house and she comes out and I get the baby out of the car and walk over to her and hand her the baby. And we go inside. After a pretty painful few, like 30 or so minutes, me and Abel got back in the car and we drove back home. And I started packing. I had missed a lot of things that were Zayn's, so I separated the rest of his items and the rest of my items and started packing. Meanwhile, he was texting me and begging me to come get him and begging me to take him back and begging me all this shit, talking about how he would get so much better and how he would do everything right. And a week later, I went back up to his mom's house and to give him his shit, and he had actually managed to convince me to stay with him in a spiritual relationship while I went down to Texas in a long distance relationship. And then I got on a plane with my 3-month-old son and I flew home. And it was right before Christmas. And none of my other family knew outside of my mom and dad. And that first week, being home with a baby and really trying to grasp that this was my life now, that I was going to do this on my own and that I was completely on my own now, and that was hard. That was a really hard week. I didn't cry that whole week. My family came in, my brother who I hadn't seen in years came in, my sister and my nephew came in, and it was really easy to fake happy. It's really, really easy to fake happy around Christmas and around your family. And Christmas night, we were sitting at the dining room table, my brother, his wife, my sister, her fiance, me, my dad, my mom. And we were all getting drunk, and we were playing Risk. And Zayn calls me, and he goes, "Hey, in one of the pictures you posted on Facebook, you're not wearing your engagement ring." And so I got real quiet, and I said, "No, because we're not staying together. I'm not getting back together with you. And this is definitely the end." And he cursed me out and called me a liar and a bitch and told me that I couldn't keep his son away from him and all this shit. And I listened to him, and the phone call ended, and we hung up. And I cried for the first time since breaking up with him, since driving him home. I cried real hard. Completely sobered me up. And I stayed outside for a good long while, middle of our game on Risk. And I came back in, and I had lost. I had lost the game. And everybody knew. And it was okay. Because then 2019 started. And this year has been the best year that I've had since 2014. And that's the truth. You know, I came home with a baby, so when you come home with a baby to your parents' house, kind of opens a lot of doors for you, because all they want is the best for their grandchild. It makes total sense. It didn't matter that I had spent the last 4 years being a burnout. It didn't matter that I was a fuck up. It didn't matter that I had no money. It didn't matter any of that. And now, in August, 2/3 of the way through the year, my whole life is set up for me. I am working at the job I'm gonna have for the rest of my life. I'm looking at moving out next year because I can afford it. And I mean really afford it, not because I have to, because I can. And I am still battling one battle, and that's with these cigarettes. And it's okay, because I can do it. You know, I'll be able to quit, and I can do it on my own. My health as of late hasn't been the best, but I have not had a seizure since December 2017. And if you're keeping your timeline correct, that's also when I conceived Abel, when I became pregnant. In fact, the last seizure I had is estimated to be about a week before I got pregnant. And while I want to keep it private, unlike my last relationship, I will say that I am seeing somebody and that he's amazing. He's fantastic with Abel. And we're taking things slow. And it's a good, healthy relationship. And it's hard on him because I am extremely damaged from the relationship with Zayn. They say that that hindsight is 20/20, and I am a firm believer of that saying, because looking back at the relationship with Zayn, I should have gotten out immediately, but I didn't know, and I didn't know what abuse looked like, and I didn't know what manipulation looked like, and I didn't know what false promises looked like. And I do now, because that was what I just lived through. And if you are somebody who has been through a relationship like that, or been damaged like that, I should say, then you know that it's hard when you get out of an unhealthy relationship, finding a healthy one, because you doubt yourself. You doubt your partner, you doubt your worth. And it's especially hard when you are not just one person. I have a baby. I have another man's baby. And for my current partner to come into my life and accept me as damaged goods, and to accept my son as a part of me without question, and to really fill in shoes that have never been filled in for Abel before, it's hard. And I know that it shouldn't be. It should be wonderful and happy and butterflies and rainbows, but it's not. It's hard. Life is hard. Life is mean. Life fucks you up. So I guess this is my story of how life fucked me up. I want to apologize to anyone who was a fan of my channel or had followed me for the past 4 years, because I was untrue and I was dishonest and I was very fake. And if you possibly made it this far, I want to make a promise to you, to all of you guys that watch my videos and that stick around and that are still subscribed, that things are going to be better. Things are not going to be like they were in 2013 or in 2014. Things are not going to be like they were for the past 4 years. Things are going to be better. Because they already are. And I want to keep you guys close, and I want to really get back to the things that defined me and my channel and made me and my channel stand out and stand apart and not blend in with all of the rest of the teeny boppy Minecraft YouTubers. You know, there's things I want to do with my channel, there's people I want to reach with my channel that I couldn't before, and we're gonna get there. We are. So, this is me, closing a door of my life, walking through the hallway to the door to the next. This is a parting of ways.
It's 16 miles.